All right, let's dive into one of the most important and often misunderstood parts of any research paper, the methods section. Today, we're going to build a super simple blueprint that you can use for pretty much any project, whether you're in accounting, biology, you name it.
Come on, let's be real for a second. The methods section, it has a reputation, right? It can feel like the most boring chapter to write, just a dry step-by-step list of things you did. If you've ever felt that way, trust me, you are not alone. But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? Check out this idea from Professor David Stuckler. He says the methods section should actually be the easiest part to write. And it makes sense, right? You're just reporting on what you've already done. It's all about a simple shift in perspective.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll nail down the real purpose of this section. Then we'll look at the ingredients that every method section needs. After that, we'll get into the specific recipes for quantitative and qualitative research, and we'll wrap it all up with the one golden rule you absolutely cannot forget.
Okay, first things first, we have to understand the method's true purpose. I want you to stop thinking of it as a checklist. Instead, think of it as the literal backbone of your research. It's what gives your entire paper strength and holds everything up.
So why is it the backbone? Well, this is where you prove your results are actually credible. It's where you give other researchers a clear enough map to replicate your study, and that's the heart of good science. Plus, this is your chance to justify your choices and really show your reader, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Okay, so how do we build this backbone? Well, it doesn't matter if you're analyzing corporate tax strategies or studying deep-sea vents. Every great methods section has the same core parts. The easiest way to remember them is just the why, the who, and the how.
These three pillars make it so much simpler. First up, the why. This is your big picture design. Was it an experiment, a case study, an archival analysis? Second, the who or what. Who did you study? Was it CFOs at public companies? And what was your data? Publicly available financial statements. And finally, pillar 3, the how. What were the exact step-by-step procedures you used to get that data and make sense of it? See? That's the basic logic right there. And this right here is the whole point. Your goal is to write a recipe. It has to be so clear, so precise, that another scientist could walk into their own kitchen, follow your steps exactly, and get the very same result. That idea, replicability, is what makes your research solid.
Now that we have that core idea down, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to start with the quantitative recipe. This is the blueprint for any research that's built on numbers. But first, it's really important to see the difference between the two main approaches. On one hand, you have quantitative research. It's usually about testing a theory that already exists using numerical data. Think survey scores, stock prices, and you're trying to find results you can generalize to a bigger population. On the other hand, qualitative research is often about building a new theory from the ground up. The data is text from interviews or field notes from observations, and the goal is a really deep, rich understanding of a specific context. So, for that quantitative recipe, there are 4 key ingredients you've got to have. You need to describe your data and your sample. You have to explain the specific measures or instruments you used. Then, detail your procedure step by step. And finally, lay out the analytic technique you used to crunch the numbers. Let's pause on that term measures or instruments. What are we talking about here? It's just a fancy way of saying the tools you used to get your numbers. It could be a survey about ethical decision-making, a well-established scale that measures job satisfaction, or even a specific software you use to scrape data from corporate reports. Now, here's the key. You can't just say, we used a survey. No way. You've got to get specific. What's the full name of the measure, and who created it? How many questions or items were there? What kind of scale did it use, like a classic 5-point Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree? And crucially, you have to show evidence that this tool is actually reliable and valid. Okay, time to switch gears. Let's talk about the qualitative recipe. This is your blueprint for when you're digging for deep, contextual insights, not just crunching numbers. The ingredients here are a little different, as you can see. For a solid qualitative methods section, you're going to need to explain your overall research approach, talk about your own positionality as a researcher, detail how you collected and analyzed your data, and finally, show how you made sure your findings were trustworthy. Let's talk about this idea of positionality because it's super important in qualitative work. This is basically you, the researcher, being totally transparent about who you are, what's your background, what are your biases and perspectives, and how might that have influenced the way you saw things. You know, a former auditor with 20 years of experience is going to see an interview with a junior accountant very differently than a psychologist would. It's not about being unbiased, it's about being honest about your biases. This table here is a fantastic little cheat sheet for describing your data collection. It doesn't matter if you did interviews, focus groups, or observations. For each one, you have to include the key details. Where did it happen? For how long? Was it recorded? And you always have to justify why you chose that method. Why was an interview better than a survey for your specific question?
So in the quantitative world, everyone talks about reliability and validity. Well, in the qualitative world, we talk about trustworthiness. It's the same idea, really. It's how you prove your findings are credible, dependable, and not just something you made up. You do this with techniques like triangulation, which is using multiple sources of data, or member checking, where you actually take your findings back to the people you interviewed and ask, hey, did I get this right?
Okay, we've gone through the quantitative recipe and the qualitative recipe, but underneath all of that, there is one single unifying golden rule. This is your number one job when you're writing this section.
And there it is. 3 simple words. Justify every choice. That's it. From the number of companies in your sample, to the specific interview questions you asked, to the statistical test you ran, you have to explain why you did what you did and why it was a better choice than the alternatives. Dr. Ron Martinez says it perfectly here. Your method section is not just a diary of your research journey. It's a persuasive argument. You are actively trying to convince the reader that your way of tackling the problem was the most logical, rigorous, and appropriate path you could have taken. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you're writing, or even just reading, a method section, ask yourself this question. Does this just read like a boring list of steps? Or does it tell a compelling and credible story of discovery? Because making that shift from a list to a story is what will make your method section and your entire paper truly great.